You're listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is November 28th, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Tuesday, reset day?
Spencer, hello. Tuesday record. What's happening?
I know.
It's been a while since we did one of those, I feel like.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we are. I'm doing well. Glad to sit down and talk WoW with you because, you know, we're really getting into the meat of the season now and it's exciting. This is like, you know, this is the first like real exciting reset day in a long time with like, you know, some vaults kind of pushed up and getting some better stuff and starting to assemble some gear. So I'm, you know, man, I did a ton of keys last week. So I've been playing a lot of WoW, just sort of like laser focused on that endgame stuff, you know, and I played a lot more than I normally would doing that stuff this past week even, and really had a great time with it. I think it's been, this season's feeling really good so far.
I think I did, 15, 16 Mythic Pluses last week. It was busy, man. I had a heavy week in World of Warcraft this past week. Had a really good time. So yeah, it's we're definitely getting the meat of the season. It's feeling rewarding to play the game. It's feeling rewarding to get the pieces of gear and try and find the things that you want. Vault was rewarding today. I got the staff off of Farrak today out of my vault, which was very, very nice. So quite pleased. It was one of those interesting things to see when it sort of popped up, because I got a staff last week. So last week I was like, yay, weapon, this is great, you know, and then this week it's like, yay, the best in slot weapon. I guess this is even better. I'll just replace the previous one with this one. So I won't replace that Farrak staff until I get the actual mythic Farrak staff, which is a ways out for me since I'm not mythic rating at the moment. So I think it'll be a while. So I'm quite pleased with that. But man, yeah, how's your past week been?
Good. Raid was really good, actually. You know, normal reclear on Tuesday. We full cleared in one night, so that was good. I think I mentioned this when we recorded last week. But so we left off with some prog staring us in the face potentially, and we ended up getting heroic Laradar down Sunday night, so that was good. Just a couple things to work out with that fight. There's sort of this nasty overlap with the falling embers and the tornadoes flying around, and the embers like 100% have to be soaked, and the tornadoes sometimes make that challenging because they want to push you out of the way. But we cleaned that up, and we still had about an hour, so we were working on heroic Nimue, and Hanks learned some things about doing that fight on heroic on Sunday, so that was good. We didn't quite get there, but we have like a couple sub 10% wipes, so that's almost certainly going to be prog this week, and then we'll move on to Smolderon. So and then we'll kind of see where we're at in terms of overall throughput and whatnot. And this week tonight we'll jump back into normal. The goal will be just to blast through it, get some Farrak loot out, and get the unlock situated so that next week we'll probably stop prioritizing the full normal clear after this week. But, you know, this way we have the unlock set up, and then we can just go straight to Farrak to start the week. And, you know, Farrak has some cool loot and also has a chance to drop the tokens that can be any set piece, and plus also the legendary starter and everything like that. So, you know, we got to I want to make sure that we're getting those in for the wider group every week, but it's obvious that heroic is where we should be spending our time at the moment. But yeah, I think Amir Drasil so far has been super fun. Like I'm really looking forward to getting in there tonight. A lot of times, and I do it to myself with running a big group and kind of all the personality conflicts and the cat herding aspect of it. Like sometimes, even when stuff is new, from a raid leader standpoint, I kind of dread raid night because it's so much work, especially at the beginning of the week. Everybody's expectations are so high. It's the biggest group and all that, you know? I think the way this content is structured, like I'm just really looking forward to getting in there with the group tonight and having fun. The raid is laid out great. It's a cool space to hang out in. The fights are fun. So I have very few even like nitpicks about Amir Drasil so far, even from like my, you know, meticulous raid leader perspective. There's a couple fights you got to split groups for, which you kind of always do, but even that is not as bad or as critical as some other fights we've seen. So it's just big thumbs up for me. as far as dungeon stuff goes, I mentioned I ran a bunch. I really didn't count how many of them I did. I have no idea. I don't even know how many I did. But I did get just a hair under 2200 rating. So I got KSM done, which was really awesome. And I got to play with all kinds of different people from my team and from some other people from the wider DJs and ZTH community. So that was really fun. And just, blasting through stuff. I think the dungeons feel really good, and we're in that period of time where we're learning, so it's kind of exciting. Like, even if you don't time something or whatever, like, you have this learning curve where it's fun to figure out what you need to do and how this works and what the best way to do it is, which that kind of falls off if you keep failing at stuff after a while. But the second week of the season and the first tyrannical week, we're learning a lot. So I didn't really have any goals on getting KSM done super fast or whatever. It obviously doesn't mean as much as it used to. Because even in Shadowlands, it was like, you have to hit KSM to get the highest rank of Valor upgrades, right? And all that stuff doesn't exist anymore. Keystone Master is now basically just a mount, which is cool, but it is nice to have now seen every dungeon on both flavors and to get some rating and start working through the system and getting those aspect crest fragments. I did get my enchanted aspect crest for my shield, so I got like a 483 item level shield or something.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, that feels really good. And just having a bunch of currency, I'll probably save up to do some other crafted pieces, I think, with my aspect fragments first, because just being able to knock out those 483s kind of on demand. My blacksmithing is maxed out, so I can make myself whatever I want. It's nice, it's just one less thing I have to kind of worry or think about or factor in. I know it's not as high compared to max item level as it was in Season 2, but for what I'm doing right now, it's more than sufficient.
Yeah. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is making sure that you are getting to the highest item level you can for the content you're doing, because that'll make you feel the strongest in the content that you're currently doing. And, even if you don't plan to transition to Mythic, it's nice to be over-geared for Heroic. It does feel good.
Right,
so.
And to help with that prog, and then to help with, meeting my other goals in...
treating more tradable pieces to other players, and there's just so many things that are nice about it.
That's true, too. Yeah, and just, working my way farther up the Mythic Dungeon system. So that's sort of been my focus, is I'm going to hang on to I wanted to get the shield up right away, because that's the biggest upgrade I can get, for Prot Warrior.
Right.
And so to go along with that, I now have 4-piece as of reset today, because I had my token sitting in my bags from hitting Keystone Master. I guess that's the bigger thing than the mount, is if you hit Keystone Master, you get a hero track item that you could turn in for any set piece you want. Well, not any set piece you want. It has to be for your class. It's soulbound, but
I wanted the Demon Hunter piece on my Druid.
Right. It doesn't quite work like that. But so I had that, and I was like, I'm just waiting for reset. I'll see, because I know we're getting a catalyst charge. I'll see if anything drops that goes in a set slot, right? And my big reward, because I did a plus 20 last week. I didn't time it, but I completed it. My big reward was 2 out of 4 myth legs. And that was not a piece where I had a set item. And I'm like, well, this is a big stat budget and it's a big item level, so this is a good candidate for the catalyst. Like, doesn't really get any better of a candidate for the catalyst than this, right? So I took that straight over to the catalyst. I went and turned in my token for a helm. And so now I have 4-piece, and everything's at least hero track. I didn't have to, use a catalyst charge on a lower item level piece of gear than the content I'm doing.
Right.
So it felt amazing. I mean, really, really cool how that worked out. And I'm super pleased. I need to maybe mess with my build a little bit, because I got to make sure I'm taking advantage of my 4-piece bonus. But it's exciting. It's fun to have. I mean, this is 3rd reset week of the season, and my gear. Yeah, I have 4-piece, and it's like good item level. It's significantly higher item level than what I was wearing 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So that feels awesome. And other than that, I hit Renown 19 like right after reset. I should hit Renown 20 this week easily without really thinking about it. So that'll just be done with Renown for now. I meant to do like a bunch of world quests and stuff last week with the contract rolling and just, clearing out the map. But I ended up just in Keys like the whole time I was playing. I didn't have time to go back in and do that outdoor stuff completely. So the benefit to that is kind of minor, but I like being in the outdoor world, and I like making gold and doing all that other stuff that you do out there. So Hey, I'm not going to complain though. Doing the keys was super fun, and so that was. It wasn't like, okay, guys, I'm going to step out to go do some world quests. Like we were just rolling. Like we had some late nights, just slamming away. So it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, I was finding myself pining away for World Quest bonus event week and wishing it was around during this anniversary buff, because it would have been really nice during this anniversary buff to come across something like that. So I'm with you on that one. Yeah, Mythic Plus last week for me was an interesting experience because I hadn't done bursting in a while. As a healer, I hadn't healed bursting in a while, which made it really interesting. I pug all of my keys, right? Because I don't have a guild and a group that I'm currently rolling with. I'm just kind of doing my own thing. And so you'd hit groups, the majority of groups that people just didn't care about bursting. And you'd be like, yeah, that's 6 stacks, 7 stacks. And you're like, okay, everyone's dead. Like, there's nothing I can do at this particular moment. You guys are just doing your thing. You already weren't at full health. We were already fighting a pack of mobs on a, 18 Everbloom. And you're just rolling over all of these stacks up and up and up. And so I ran to that a lot. The groups that I did run that to, credit to Missile Dine, Corey out there, who I met up with at BlizzCon, and got to know a bit better. I ran a couple of pugs with him. His groups were always very good.
Nice. Awesome. Corey's awesome. I never got a chance to play with him, but yeah, he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's got a great community over there. So that's awesome.
Yeah. So those were both nice additions to my keys for the week of just running with a group where you're like, oh, this is how it's supposed to feel when you're running with people who respect the mechanics and do things properly. Because the pugs were rough. And I actually wanted to highlight Everbloom last week as a dungeon that I knew would be bad, but had no idea it would be as bad as it was. I don't know what the highest key was you did last week with an organized group inside Everbloom. But I know that bursting for me in there was the cause of a lot of strife, but actually the thing that caused the most strife last week for me with pug groups was the second boss. The council boss in there on Tyrannical was crazy to try and heal through on anything over a 16. It was bizarre how much damage was going out. And this, again, I didn't go back through my logs and check over everything about how many puddles people were standing in. And I know there were a lot of interrupts being missed and things like that were happening with these groups. So it's entirely possible that was the result as to why this boss was so hard to suffer through, to try and get dead. But I walked away from it feeling like they could do some tuning on the second boss of Everbloom. They could tone this down somewhat in what they're doing.
I think I only did it on a 14, so not quite as high. Just the keys just kind of didn't line up. But yeah, Everbloom is weird. It doesn't feel like a great keystone to me. The routing is very strange, and the bosses are straightforward, and I think, they're kind of tuned to be punishing to compensate for their lack of overall mechanics.
Right.
What we did again, we're on a 14, so I mean that per rank, it doesn't sound like a lot because it's only -2, but that per rank scaling is a lot, and there's a big difference between even 15 and 16. Like when you get above 15, the difficulty tier like noticeably changes.
Yeah.
But what we did was, you have the Berserker guy, and then you have Water guy, and you have Nature guy, right? And normally, I think like back in Warlords, we always used to kill Water guy first.
Yeah.
Somebody in my group suggested we should kill Nature guy first because his damage is the most dangerous, and if we take him off the board, then the whole fight gets easier. But we just have to make sure that we have interrupts assigned for Water guy. So that's what we did, and that seemed to work out pretty well because the difficulty ramped down significantly once Nature guy was dead. But like I could see, I could see that being a real problem as you get up higher. I think if we were doing it any higher than maybe 15 or 16, then I'm not sure how our group would have fared with it. But
right.
So I don't know. Everbloom is one of the dungeons so far that I feel the least comfortable with by like a lot. It's been out of our consciousness for so long as like an actual dungeon as anything other than time walking, and the routing is to me, it's so weird. It's so out of the ordinary for a keystone because there's just trash everywhere, and all those lashers have on death effects and all that stuff. So it doesn't feel great right now to me.
I will say that bursting wise, I've sort of figured out how to handle it after doing I failed a lot of Everblooms last week. And by failed, I mean people left partway through the key, and then I was like, all right, well, I guess we're done. And the bursting I got a handle on and could handle with, but we would consistently get to the second boss, and you'd have the tank yelling at the melee DPS for dropping puddles underneath the mob they were trying to DPS, and then having, you know, no interrupts happening, and then like it would totally fall apart and come off the wheels. Wheels would come off partway through that boss. So I did it. I think I did it on a 14 or on a 12 or something like that. With a group that managed to get through it and did Nature Guy first and that kind of thing. But anything that I was trying to do at the higher end keys of the 16s to 18s kind of range was just like, nope, not happening. Like, man, okay. I will say on the complete other end of the spectrum, Blackrock Hold feels great. That place feels even on Tyrannical. That place feels great. That is exactly where that keystone should be.
Yeah,
man.
it's a pretty good dungeon. Yeah, I mean, even we had Sanguine first week of the season, right? And I don't think I did it. I think I did it too low to have Sanguine at that point. But yeah. That one hallway. Well, I'll just always be kind of traumatized from the hallway with the worm tongue dudes when Sanguine, where they would just stand in it forever, and that was when you had minute-long Sanguine and all that.
Yeah. No, I mean that could still be a problem. I didn't do it when there was Sanguine involved either. But this week on Tyrannical, it was one of the ones I was worried about. First boss can be a little bit tricky with how much damage the spinning scythe will deal, like whether or not just one-shot someone in a 1 second window, because it ticks every 0.5 seconds for the spinning scythe damage. So it can kill someone very quickly. So I was worried about that. I was worried about the charge boss, as whether or not the charge boss was just going to annihilate people with bats and whatnot, spewing down the puke on people if they stood in a tick for too long. And then the last boss is always scary in that place, man, because it's so unforgiving, right? Where first phase you have I-beams that go across that one-shot people. Second phase you have the spinning I-beam that, you know, one-shots people. You got the sleep clouds going on at the same time that people can wander into. But overall, the place felt really straightforward, really smooth. I only had minor, you know, PTSD flashbacks to my healing challenge for Mage Tower when I did it ages ago. It was just a little bit there, but otherwise, I think it's a great key. So, yeah, I Blackrock's actually climbed up as one of my favorite ones to run. So, I'm quite pleased with that. Even with the bats don't even make it that bad. So, I was happy with that. But yeah, no, I think I had a great week overall in WoW. I did all the stuff outside of out in the open world that I could. Even did some herb gathering, just flying around gathering herbs for a while, which was a lot of fun. I still haven't maxed out my professions, right? Because I wasn't actively doing them all that much. So I'm getting closer and closer.
Lot to do. Yeah,
and I'm getting close. I mean, pretty close now to finishing off at least herbalism, and alchemy's coming along as well. So not too far off, but it is one of those, you know, neat things to sort of work on them every now and then, have a side project going on. What was I thinking of? There was another thing I wanted to mention, top of show here, that I think they should do. It was a gear update. I was hoping they were going to update the gear that came from I don't remember what it was. All right, I'll come back to that, but I will say that I went down to Lom Niffen and I did some of the maps where they take you into and those give out the same kind of gear that you get from doing your there was a 428s, I think, is where 421s or 428s you get off of doing those maps. So as much as we were saying last week that going down to the Lom Niffen and doing their stuff isn't nearly as important, it is a great way to gear up a character early. If you have an earlier character, that's another way to get those 421s and 428s and all that kind of stuff early on.
That's nice. I mean, it must top out at what, does it top out at 450 or like
441? I think is where
or something. Yeah, I mean that's still pretty nice, and that's repeatable because you can buy the dig maps off the one vendor there, so you can do the sniff and seeking. It's grindy, but you know, if you want to get straight into that 440 plus range, if you want to short circuit LFR gearing, basically, that's another option. That's awesome. That's and getting the maps isn't super fun, but I always thought the sniff and seeking was fun. I think it's a cool activity they put in.
I like it. I still think there's cool rewards from it. I still like the puzzle solving aspect of it. I think it is something that they are basing delves off of, to be honest. I think those kinds of activities is what we'll find inside delves. So, you know, be ready for that kind of stuff. I will say that Lom Niffen reputation in general should be something that's a lot more broad for you to get. I think having to go down there still to be able to get that reputation is unfortunate, and do those particular world quests. I wish there was a more broad way to get reputation from them. But yeah,
yeah, it's weird. They didn't really put in a lot of like Loam Niffen catch up or anything with 10.2. That actually, I don't think they put in anything. And I mean, you know, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but like the weekly war mode quest, the Sparks of Life quest, is in Zaralik Cavern this week, and it does not award Loam Niffen rep. Even though when it's in Emerald Dream, it awards 1K Dream Warden's rep. Yeah, for some reason, the Loam Niffen is just a special thing that doesn't get these big rep bonuses and catch ups. I don't know why.
Yeah,
they didn't even roll it into like the aiding the Accord, right? Like that's just the 4 10.0 reps. Like you could easily throw us a Loam Niffen token in that at this point. It's technically, you know, outdated content.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Anyways, let's hop into what's going on this week, just so that we can actually add in the rest of the stuff I have to say to what's going on this week. All right, this week is the Legion Time Walking event going on, meaning the sign of the Legion buff is up, increasing reputation gains from combat and quests for Legion reputations by 50%, as well as characters level 45 and above can access time walking versions of Blackrock Hold, Court of Stars, Darkheart Thicket, Eye of Ashara, Maltharian's Lair, and Vault of the Wardens. There's, of course, a quest to complete, which will get you that 441 gear from a Mjolnir if you actually end up finishing that up. To complete 5 of them. If you complete 5 of them, you'll get yourself some 441 gear. The dungeons themselves drop 428, which is on the Adventurers track, so you can in fact upgrade it. The dungeons themselves also count towards your vault. So they count on the Heroic track for doing Heroic Dungeons track for your vault. So if you're doing time walking, you will actually get vault slots, which is another nice little bonus or reward. Even if you're doing your, Mythic Plus or whatever it is, if you're doing 2s and 6s and whatnot in Mythic Plus, this will actually help you fill out a whole bunch of that to get the third reward slot, right? If you're somebody who doesn't do a whole lot of keys in a week, but you do 5 of these, plus a few, like 3 or 4 Mythic Pluses, you'll actually have a full vault of dungeon rewards, which is a pretty neat thing to kind of see for some folks out there. There's a vendor who sells 411 gear. If that's something you're looking to get, Jason, did you want to hop in on something?
Yeah, well, I want to say that there is something weird about this right now, maybe, because now we're recording. The servers have been up for 2.5 hours. The reward cache for the week is low compared to the way it used to be, and we've had no communication yet to whether or not this is intentional. Because right now it's technically giving you like LFR quality.
The 441.
Yeah. Whereas normally this would give normal quality.
Yeah.
So the message right now is like, don't do this yet until there's some communication as to whether or not this is intentional. I hope that it's not, because this removes like a big reason for me to want to do time walking. We know like the dungeon gear is what it is. At least it's upgradable. They made that change last season. But if this ends up being just LFR gear for this season, I think that's a mistake. This should stay normal raid gear, even though we have that wider item level gap this season. Like I think having it be
makes
LFR
it more enticing
gear
to do.
Yeah, it's too low, and it doesn't fill up the queues with people who are like maybe heroic raiders or something, where it's like, hey, if I get that trinket though, like it was worth the 5 dungeons, So anyway, I guess we'll see. We'll report back if we get any updates, between now and next show or whatever, because this is a big change. This has never worked like this since they kind of went to this model. So we don't know if it's intended or if it's a bug because of they just have it like coded to go up, the 26 item levels or whatever, and it should be 39 this time. So we'll see. Hoping it's a bug or just a straight up mistake. It is kind of funny that half of this dungeon pool for this event now is stuff that's been keystones, like this expansion.
Yeah. I do dig that in a big way. Which I find it amusing every time we see it, because it's like, hey, here's your way to practice for the Mythic Plus. If you're a newer player who's like, I've never run Blackrock Hold before, or you know what, I'm an experienced player, but I haven't run Blackrock Hold before, this is your chance to go and do the dungeon on time walking, which will have all the same mechanics for you to sort of explore and check out with folks, except obviously the bosses won't live as long. And you'll be able to sort of learn that and learn the route and learn, where things are before you go in and do the Mythic Plus. Now, there are some Mythic Plus dungeons where they've like tweaked boss mechanics and tweaked some little things here and there, but you'll get the general idea of what these keystones are like. So it's kind of a cool way to practice your keystone for the week while working towards another reward, which is why I agree with Jason. If they're going to up this to normal, where it should be, it's certainly worth waiting on to try and do that. But it's not the only extra content you get. You also have Black Temple time walking happening during this, and Black Temple time walking is dropping.
No, that's during Burning Crusade. This is Legion.
Oh, this is
There's
Legion.
no Legion raid yet.
There's no Legion raid yet. You're right. Man, my brain went to Black Temple because it went to Illidan because it went to Legion. That is a really weird crossover my head did, because Legion was
like the Legion.
Yeah.
They were both the Illidan expansions.
They were both the Illidan expansion. I don't know why my brain did that, but
I see the leap. We still haven't gotten an MOP raid. We don't have BFA time walking yet.
No.
I don't know. Time walking is awesome. I just want to see more features in there, and more raids. Yeah, but no raid this cycle, which is it's kind of a bummer. But the good thing is that Amir Drasil is still super fresh, right? So your raid group is probably just going to want to do Amir Drasil. Yeah. It's great when that starts to kind of dip down a bit after a couple months in, and then you have because now they made the time walking raids awesome. They're a great option, so they'll be kicking in, a little bit later in the season, which is nice.
Yeah. The just so you're aware where I was going with that, though, guys, they actually upped obviously the eye levels for time walking raids. So it now drops, when we do get them, it'll be 454s that can go up to 476s, which is really nice.
It's amazing.
We see that come in.
If the tuning stays about what it was in season 2, that's just free loot. That's nice loot for not a lot of effort.
Yeah, so that'll be big for a lot of teams. Aiding the Accord is up. It's 3k rep that you have to earn towards just in any faction whatsoever, as well as you have to choose and complete an activity. The activities right now are the Emerald Bounty or the Siege on Dragonbane Keep. And be aware, if you are a newer character who hasn't been playing for a lot of this expansion, you literally cannot select Siege on Dragonbane Keep because you haven't gotten permission to participate in it yet. Which, again, I think is a big flaw with this expansion, that they've locked and gated so many activities that you actually have to go and do a fair amount of work to unlock some of these activities still. I think they should be opening some of these doors a bit more widely for folks to be able to have access to things, especially like a weekly task. Anyways, I'm glad that there's two options.
I think that's bugged, though, because it wouldn't let me do it on my warrior either. And I think there was a bug with that. Again, we don't have any communication on this stuff. Yeah. Same thing with the event reward. So we don't know for sure. You should probably choose Emerald Bounty, though. Unless you're
going to be doing it anyways, you might as well pick it.
You want to do it anyway. It's really fast and easy to do. It's lucrative. Pick Emerald Bounty this week, pretty much exclusively. And but I think the Siege on Dragonbane Keep thing is bugged, but at the moment we have no other information. I don't know if there's something just weird you have to do to be able to select it, or if they need to push a fix for it or something. But here we are. There was supposed to be extended maintenance day originally. The original schedule was like a 3-hour maintenance, and then they backed it down to 1 hour. And so maybe there's some weird stuff floating around this week.
There could be. PvP quests for the week are Epic Battlegrounds and Rated Battlegrounds with, as you said, Sparks of Life happening down in Zeralek's Cavern for the War Mode. The Brawl for the week is Comp Stomp. It's finally back. We rotated back around to Comp Stomp for those folks who want to head into a Wrathy Basin and fight against their advanced AI. And get yourself a whole bunch of honor grind with some of the fastest Wrathy Basins you will ever see. I think my fastest record on this was 3.5 or 4 minutes for one Wrathy Basin. Nice. They're great, man. It is a huge way to earn honor really fast. Obviously, there's also the Something Different quest, which gets you some Marks of Honor, Conquest and Honor as well. So this is the great honor grind week if you're someone who's not looking for the entertainment of fighting other players, but just wants to get honor quickly. This is a great week to just slam the brawls as much as you can to try and earn those. It's a really good time.
It's super fun. If you ever wanted to just feel like a warlord running around a Wrathy base, and then this is your week. I haven't done this in a while. I might get in there this week just because it's super fun to play against the bots. I wish there was a way you could always do this, but I guess I understand why there isn't. I feel like that would have knock-on effects across the game that they don't really want. They don't want this to always be an option, because then it would just be the correct option for sort of all of your, weekly stuff or what have you, or they'd have to make it award basically nothing, which isn't super fun, doing it just for the sake of doing it without the benefits of it being a brawl would be kind of weird. So I guess it has to be relegated to a sometimes treat, but it is really fun to play against the advanced AI bots. We're getting follower dungeons in 10.2.5, so we're getting AI companions in PvE. Maybe we could get a more permanent AI PvE just to kind of get the feel of how the maps work and stuff. Maybe who knows? Maybe follower dungeons will lead to more opportunities for PvP against bots, but for now, it's a brawl every 12 weeks, so check it out while it's here.
Yeah. Orastar the Hibernator is the new world boss who is up over in the Emerald Dream, dropping some 441 loot, if that's something you're looking for. Be sure you're getting over there and knocking out Orastar the Hibernator. There are obviously still the older world bosses with Zukali Elders, and this is Strunron, Sky's Misery this week. Those two are both good for rep, if that's something you're looking to get. The loot off them at this point is pretty relegated, so it wouldn't be something that you're doing it for that unless you look forward to the transmog. That's about the only thing you're doing them for, so just be aware of those. Mythic Plus affixes for the week are Fortified, Volcanic, and Spiteful, which means that non-boss enemies have more health and inflict increased damage. While in combat, enemies periodically cause gouts of flame to erupt beneath the feet of distant players, and fiends rise from the corpses of non-boss enemies and pursue random players. Now, when I said Fortified Volcanic, everyone went, oh, this could be a great week. And I went Spiteful, and they're like, okay, fine, okay. Spiteful's not terrible, all right? Like, Spiteful is a pain in the butt. It locks you in combat. Any of the new dungeons that require some sort of transport, like going through a portal that you can't do while you're in combat, sucks with Spiteful because you have to kill off all the Spiteful ads before you can go through a portal. Now, in a lot of cases, those portals are actually attached to bosses, and I'm talking specifically about like the Dawn of the Infinite dungeons. So typically you won't have Spiteful ads after them, and it won't sort of hold you back too much, but it's something you have to be aware of. I imagine a dungeon like Everbloom, I'm just going to highlight Everbloom again because I can, is going to suck with Spiteful, because you're going to kill off all the little mobs that are there, and they're all going to spawn ghosts, and all the ghosts are going to chase people, and people aren't going to deal with them properly or not want to kill them, and they're going to move into the next pull, and then you're going to have to deal with them. So just be aware of that. In general, this week I think is probably, I personally think this is probably a great Fortified week overall. Spiteful ads suck, but Volcanic's actually like a non-affix. Bosses are going to just fall over because none of this applies to bosses, which means any boss that you were struggling with, the council boss inside of Everbloom as an example, should just melt and explode, and you don't have to worry about anything, which is wonderful. All you have to do is just dodge Volcanics, which shouldn't be too hard to do for a lot of folks inside a big wide open space. The only place I can see Volcanic coming in as a potential risk for players is probably in Waycrest Manor, because you have very little space to sort of maneuver around, and you're inside tight hallways. So there might actually be some issues there with potentially getting knocked up in the air and having to suffer with Volcanic. Darkheart, potentially. I think it would really suck to have to deal with Volcanic while you're running up the stairs dodging boulders. That's not exactly something I'd want to have to deal with, because it means that you probably wouldn't get hit by it if you're at the head of the group, but someone following you would probably get hit by your Volcanic, which would suck. So just, bear in mind those couple of little niche scenarios where something could happen. But outside of that, man, I think it's a great Fortified week.
Yeah, if you have to do something like that, just send your fastest party member up the stairs to shut off the boulders, right?
Yeah.
Just make your druid go up there. Overall, I look at this and I go, I'm interested in doing keys this week. This seems like a good combo. Volcanic, I'm trying to think of this boss pool, and there are a couple council fights like you kind of mentioned. Everbloom has one, and Waycrest Manor has one. Waycrest Manor also has like a 2-mob boss fight, and I don't know if Lady Waycrest can proc Volcanics off of you. So there might be, some boss fights where, because the way the targets are split up, that melee characters might be eligible targets, which is unusual. So that can be kind of tricky. But even if you get hit with a Volcanic, it's rarely game over. It's not going to hurt you that much. It is going to disrupt you. But, Volcanic used to be a nuke, basically. It used to do a lot of damage. They made it a disruption. So even if you have that, you will get it on bosses, but there's plenty of counterplay. It's not that bad.
You made me think of something with whether or not we'd have to deal with Morchi splitting into a whole bunch of twins and then all of those spawning Volcanics. Whether or not that's a thing.
There you go.
I don't know if that's a
also, like,
thing.
your
You have to-
shades on Morchi, yeah.
And you have to move behind Morchi to not get hit by the Dragon's Breath. And if that means that everyone stacks up there and you get a whole bunch of volcanics in one little area because everyone's trying to move behind the boss, that could be a potential issue. But yeah.
There's a lot of targets on that fight. And I wonder if, like, the ghost add things in the battlefield fight in that dungeon also count as volcanic targets. Like, you can't like swap and target them, but they do exist. So it might be like bugged or something. I guess we'll find out.
We'll find out.
But yeah, overall, I mean, it's highly counterplayable, but there might be some weird overlaps on some bosses that you have to pay attention to it. Spiteful is going to make trash just sloggy as hell, and it is annoying, but again, there's counterplay. You can stun and root and slow and knock them back, and you can avoid them if you can position them, like pull a bunch of stuff. Waycrest Manor, for example, you go out in the courtyard, you kill tree boss, pull that hallway out into the courtyard, kill it all where you killed the boss, and then everybody just runs away from it, right? You don't have to waste any uptime on the Spiteful ads, because by the time they catch up to you, they're going to expire. So you can use the terrain to your advantage to deal with Spiteful. You can use any kind of disruptions to keep them off of you. You don't have to just like pump DPS into them. But they do hurt, so don't let them hit you. But other than that, yeah, I mean, I like this combo. I think, the first week is always weird. So, we had a fort week the first week, which was awesome because that meant we weren't like brick walling on bosses that weren't going to die. So we could complete a bunch of keys, but it was hard to get a feel for how anything really felt. And I was pushing up keys as low as 5, it's the first week of the season. So now we sort of have our bearings a bit. This is our first real fortified week to see how stuff feels. So I'm looking forward to getting in there. I'm probably not going to do as many keys as I did last week, but I still want to do a lot. I need currency. I want to get some rating. I want to try to get to 2,500. Not this week necessarily, but I got a lot of work to do out of the system, and I've been having a great time. I think the dungeon pool is really strong, better than I thought it was going to be. I would say when I saw it on paper, I'm like, well, okay, obviously you have the mega dungeon, the 2 wings.
Which turned out both turned out much better as keystones than I thought they would.
Yeah,
honestly,
I think they're great keystones so far. Yeah, absolutely.
I was really worried about how much we would struggle with that as keystones, and they've done a very good job at tweaking boss mechanics to make it feel much better inside of a keystone dungeon. So
I think they came out great. Yeah, I don't think they really need that the Tazavesh style reworks after launch. I think they're just. Yeah, they're feeling good.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of the other ones I was like, well, this matches kind of thematically, but I don't know how this is going to be. But overall, I mean, I've been enjoying the whole pool so far. There's nothing that is an outlier to me where like I really hate this. Obviously, you have like Throne of the Tides has some real sticky elements for sure. Everbloom we spent a lot of time talking about already, and like some of those dungeons now. What do those 2 dungeons have in common? They were never keystones before. All the other ones were. So, maybe those end up being the ones that get a little bit more attention going forward. But there's really nothing so far that I'm dreading if it shows up as, a party member's keystone. I kind of want to just do everything and learn all the, all the little vagaries of each dungeon and figure it out and work my way through the system. So that's cool. It's cool to be excited about it and not like, I'm dreading this thing that we have to try to deal with.
Yeah, I actually the only keystone to me that is the keystone that I don't want is a Taldazar. That's the only one I don't want, man.
Really? Yeah,
believe it or not, like
in there. Yeah,
the dealing with the totems on the first boss, I think they just need to eliminate. I just honestly think they do. It is that there's so many different things they could do at the start of that fight. Then try and make 3 people DPS down totems at the same time, which if you fail to do the first time around on any kind of relevantly high keystone, it's just a wipe. It's just not a forgiving mechanic. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
It's hard to sort of explain to people. People don't keep track of it well enough. It's just not a fun mechanic.
That's real hard in a pug, yeah, for sure.
That to me, and then the last boss, where if you don't bring in a paladin who can immunity bubble and clear a whole bunch of spiders, it just doesn't feel like a fun fight either. I think Taldazar to me is the weakest keystone actually that we have out there right now. I think Throne is actually in a pretty good spot. The only boss in Throne that I think trips a lot of people up is the second boss, where you have the little slimes that chase people down and they have to actually hit them with something to knock them away, because the slimes will get to them and explode and kill the people. I think that folks are still sort of figuring that one out, because the room you have to move the boss so much as a tank that often your healer plants too long and then is out of range of people and gets trapped inside of an area of the room because of where the slimes went into their, dormant state. So they aren't able to keep up on healing. So it's an interesting thing to sort of watch happen. I did a lot of DPS and healing this week, and the thing I consistently see inside Thrones when I ran them last week was, as a DPS, was our healer getting out of range of everyone else in the group because they just stood still too long in that fight, as opposed to just trying to literally hug the boss and stay with the boss the whole time, is kind of the way that you do that fight. So I think Throne's actually in a decent spot. My biggest concern is Ataldazar for the season. I think that it's going to be the most unforgiving key, with the most like, oops, you screwed up, okay, start over, kind of situations that happen for folks.
I think the buffs to the last boss were just unnecessary. The last boss was hard enough when we could interrupt it and all that. Like, that just didn't really need to happen. But, they've been good about keeping an eye on this stuff in terms of completion rates and whatever. And if something really ends up being an outlier, then I have confidence that they'll adjust it. Also, early season Tyrannical weeks, stuff is gonna be hard. The bosses are gonna be hard. So we sort of know that going in, but you always have an eye towards like, okay, well, if this keeps scaling up or whatever, like how does this,
that's where my brain goes.
Where does this end up? And so that's kind of the give and take. So we'll see. But so far I think it's off to a good start.
Agreed.
And we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I
do think the good thing is like they have always been good about like the last 2-3 expansions. Like, okay, this Keystone sucks, we're gonna fix it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I do feel like you can see in these Mythic Plus dungeons the transition of mechanics getting less forgiving and more one-shot mechanics happening in your BFA sort of Mythic Plus pool versus your Legion one, where things currently are reasonably forgiving and you can kind of deal with it, except for like one mechanic that's super dangerous on most boss fights. Usually there's like one thing that can kill you, but that's the one thing and it's avoidable for folks to sort of deal with. To like Everbloom, where you're like, oh, okay, like this is actually, everything's kind of forgiving. You just take a lot of damage in an extended period of time. So it's like sustainability. Can you keep everyone alive through this barrage of 45 seconds of damage, right? Like it's sort of like what that WoD kind of era was. It's really interesting to sort of see the Mythic Plus dungeon pool be mixed up like this and be like, oh, okay, I can see where developers' minds were at as far as what kind of mechanics and playstyle players were interested in during each of these eras of the game based off of what boss mechanics were doing and how the boss mechanics work. So I like that all the way up, and you hit Dragonflight with Dawn of the Infinite and you're like, oh, there's one important mechanic that can wipe everybody in the group, but otherwise things are survivable and avoidable, and this is where the game is kind of moving. And I mentioned this when I was talking to someone earlier this week. I really hope that the next expansion that we see is one where they continue moving in the direction of Dragonflight. They go beyond Dragonflight in the same direction they've moved with this content, because I think that will make it a much more enjoyable experience for everybody when it comes to playing the game, which is an easier direction. Like the game is getting easier, which I think is fine. I don't think there's something wrong with doing that. I think it should be moving in a direction where players have more accessibility to content, and you see more players participating in content and getting gear and feeling like it's rewarding to play the game. So I'm hoping we keep going in that direction. But we've talked a lot about Mythic Plus. Let's talk about WoW's 19th anniversary that's happening. It's still going on until the 7th of December. This means that if you go to your mailbox, you get your anniversary package, which has some time-warped badges in it, as well as a timely invitation, which invites you down to the Caverns of Time to pick up some quests that are down there. You also get your celebration package item that you can use, and it applies a buff to your character for the duration of the anniversary that increases your experience and reputation gains from all sources by 19%. So a nice big old buff. And be sure that you are taking advantage of that while that's around, because that's a really nice, huge buff for folks. And that buff will stack with Darkmoon Faire from the 3rd until the 7th, obviously, while that's going on. So be sure that you are stacking up your 10% Darkmoon Faire with that. So that's coming up next week for folks who are interested in doing that. Outside of that, man, there's just a lot to do. There's the classic world bosses, which drop 441 loot. So that's certainly worthwhile going out and doing, killing off those bosses. There's the daily trivia question where I've parked some alts at, which have now gone up 3 or 4 levels, I think, on those alts, where you just sort of log in each day, answer the trivia question, and you get a third of your level, and then you can log out again. That's wonderful for participating in that. There's the portals that I highlighted last week that you can click on that will let you revisit all of the in-game and out-of-game cinematic moments for expansions over the years, which are certainly a nostalgia trip if you want to look at some of those. There's mounts and toys and pets. There's a world boss in Tanaris to kill, which gets you the Azure World Chiller mount, which is this cool-looking mount. That's something you want to get. It is certainly one of the best times of the year to play World of Warcraft and be playing World of Warcraft. So I certainly encourage people to take full advantage of all of that. And like I said, Darkmoon Fair running from the 3rd to the 9th. So you have that overlap from the 3rd to the 9th. So be sure you're taking advantage of your profession skill ups and getting yourself some tokens and getting yourself the extra reputation buff and doing your pet battles and all that sort of stuff with Darkmoon Fair that's going on.
Yeah, it's a great event, and they've just added so much stuff to it over the years, and they keep adding stuff, and it's cool. The 19% rep and XP is amazing. I've taken full advantage of that for Dream Wardens for sure. So yeah, we still got a couple weeks here on it, or another week plus. So yeah, definitely take advantage of it if you haven't. Just don't, if you're missing anything from years past, so that might be the confusing part, is trying to figure out where it all comes from and how to get it. So because there's so much to collect from it, and they've left a lot of it just in there. It's granted, there's usually an annual pet or mount or something that they eventually shut off, but lately you probably won't be able to get Lil Frostwing after this event is over, but the stuff from Doomwalker tends to stick around. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, some of the stuff they moved to a vendor, I think, and you just gotta click around Caverns of Time or check Wowhead, make sure you're not missing anything while this event's still running.
Yeah, exactly. All right, hotfixes for the week. The Mistweaver monks got some 2-set and 4-set adjustments. The 2-set bonus to set Chi Harmony now only increases healing taken from monk abilities. That's an important one, as opposed to just also increasing healing done by monk abilities would be a lot.
I assume it was bugged and
doing
it
both.
was taking bonus healing from any healing abilities or something.
It might have been, yeah. Could have been that.
That would be a lot. So yeah, this is for the monk to heal more is what the bonus is supposed to be for.
Yep. The 4-set Chi Harmony no longer accumulates healing taken by revitalizing Voodoo Totem. I shouldn't be accumulating stuff from trinkets and things like that either, so that's a good one. As far as Demonology Warlocks go, they fixed an issue where Soul Strike would be relearned whenever Felguard is summoned. Yeah, that's irritating. And Felguard should now prioritize using Soul Strike once it's off cooldown, so just keep that in mind as well. Inside dungeons, I know we saw Darkheart Thicket, where they fixed an issue with Oakheart's Crushing Grip damage, piercing immunities, which it shouldn't be doing. As well as Galakron's Fall, the interval no longer triggers on death effects. On death affixes. And in Everbloom, Melded Berserker's Bounding Whirl inflicts damage every 1.5 seconds as opposed to 1 second. So we're already seeing little changes here and there to Everbloom. I'd love to see much more dramatic changes to Everbloom to sort of help with some of this stuff. So that would be very nice.
Or maybe just kind of call out some better path, change maybe some of the mob density to just make paths a bit more obvious or something too. I don't know. I think you'd be a candidate for that. But one change I love here is the Galakron's Fall change. It's that intervals don't trigger on death affixes. These are the sand elemental thingies in this dungeon. They cast this and they split off these little mini sand elementals, and those things were triggering sanguines and they were triggering burstings the last 2 weeks. And that's no fun because you get a couple extra of these intervals per sand Ellie. And then, now you got extra sanguine, you got extra bursting, whatever, on stuff that's very low health and inconsequential. So good to see they got that fixed because, that's kind of the rule we played by for many years now is summons don't trigger on death mechanics. So good job. I'm glad that got fixed. I haven't done this since this got fixed, but I'm looking forward to not having to worry about that this week.
Yeah, and they also put in a quest fix for players who did not receive intended weekly amount of Echoed Ephemera for the Power of Dreams. Receive these missing items mail. I was one of those people. I literally was rolling up to my mailbox middle of the day yesterday and was like, oh, hey, look, there's a bunch of these echoed ephemeras sitting in here. And I was like, what are these even for? And as I took them out, I watched a quest start completing. And I was like, oh, that's what these are for. That makes sense. Okay. So yeah, that got resolved for folks. If you notice that in game, if you haven't, then when you log in, you will. As far as PvE class tuning, we got a post here from Nimox, who's a game designer, who says, this afternoon, we posted about class tuning that we're doing tomorrow. These changes were informed by class performance over the first 2 weeks of the season. When a new season begins, we collect a huge amount of data about class performance, item acquisition rates, PvP statistics, etc. During this time, we will fix any crucial, disruptive, or otherwise immediate problems that come up as quickly as we can. We also need to be careful about any class changes we plan and ensure we have adequate data to make informed decisions, and then additionally need time for testing the changes we're making to avoid further issues. Alongside the changes in the above link, we are planning to send an additional batch of tuning changes that will be released during restart on the week of December 5th. So that's next week, which will probably include some buffs and nerfs. We'll continue to make adjustments regularly on data and feedback, but probably not as often later in the season compared to these earlier first few weeks. So good to see that they're working their way through and doing class tuning stuff. Now I do know that they posted this class tuning update that's probably coming out next week within this post. I know it includes Druid healing being increased by 3% across the board, which is huge. Obviously not applied to PvP. Shadow Priest damage increased by 5% across the board, not applied to PvP. Affliction Warlock and Destruction Warlock, both you and your pet's abilities buffed up by 6% damage. So these are all changes that are coming in next week. Frost DKs, you got a huge pass, increasing their damage and tweaking some set bonuses and things like that. So there's definitely some classes they're looking at. I am excited about the Resto Druid thing. I'm wondering if that is a result of bursting and noticing how hard it is for a Resto Druid to keep people up through high stacks of bursting. It is something where you are using it, like once you've used your cooldown abilities, if you go from that pull into another high bursting pull, you're kind of screwed. So it is something where I am glad that they're looking at that and going, yeah, you know what, if all these hots tick for that little bit more and that's amplified by mastery, we could see druids keeping up better with 4 or 5 stacks of bursting, or that 8 or 9 stacks of bursting situations for cooldowns. Would be nice to be in a situation where you could actually handle that sort of thing when they happen to come up. So I'm glad to see that they're working their way through it. It's good to see.
Yeah, I know there's there's some concern out there because there's some kind of outlier specs one way or the other early on here. And there kind of always is going to be for a variety of reasons. And the one wave of tuning is not going to resolve all of those things either. So just it was good, I guess, that, we got some blue text about like, listen, we're doing some stuff this week. We have more stuff planned over the next couple weeks. And, we're going to keep an eye on it and we're going to make adjustments where we feel it's necessary. I feel like that communication is really important. And it's something they haven't always been great about, Like we know that, okay, the tuning that comes out week 3 of the season is not going to be the end of the PvE class tuning for the season, right? Like we know that because we have enough evidence to suggest that that's the case. Like they're going to tune this for a while yet, but it does feel bad if like a spec that you like playing is considered to be wrong, even if your personal performance isn't that bad. If your spec is stigmatized, it just doesn't feel fun. You feel like you're missing out on something, or you might have trouble getting into groups if you're trying to pug or whatever. And that stinks. It's not 100% a function of tuning, but tuning can certainly help. So just, always good to hear that they're keeping an eye on it and what their immediate plans are. I like anytime they drop in with any of that kind of info, even though I assume that they're always looking at it just from following the game for as long as I have. But there's a difference between me assuming that and then posting it in blue text.
Yeah. Dream Surge buffs in Veldraken. Kaivex came in and said, we have a hotfix underway. Thereafter, Dream Surge buffs will no longer apply to player characters who are in Veldraken, which means all of you who chose stealth will now rejoice that you are not crouched and moving slowly everywhere you go in Veldraken. That's getting fixed. So no longer will that bane people's existence to have that buff.
Yeah, that's a nice fix. What's funny about that is I'm pretty sure it worked this way in 10.2.7 or 10.1.7. I'm sorry, 10.2.7 is not out yet.
Nope.
I'm pretty sure it worked this way in 10.1.7. And anybody, please feel free to correct me, but that's just how the game is so not a hot commodity in 10.1.7 that there weren't enough people to complain about it for them to fix it. But I'm pretty sure you would get the Dream Surge buffs like in Valdrakken for that entire patch, and it never got changed. But then, a couple days into, we have the stealth Dream Surge buff in Valdrakken, and it's making getting around the city super annoying, and it gets hotfixed. So yeah, I think people are plugged into 10.2 a bit more than they were in 10.1.7, but it's a good change. It was always weird having those buffs in Valdrakken. Like, you could collect some Dream Surge coalescence in Valdrakken, but it's not like there's really anything else to do in terms of the Dream Surge there. You're supposed to be in other parts of the zone, so
yeah,
it makes perfect sense. I'm glad they changed it.
Yeah. Another post we got in here comes from Chimes, who's a WoW developer. It's about gear from rated PvP. Says we've heard quite a bit of feedback around the PvE upgrade tracks for gear from rated PvP sources, both the Great Vault and the Conquest vendor. Many of you are concerned that having the Conquest vendor sell gear on the veteran track significantly reduces the potential PvE item level of most, but not all, of the rated PvP gear. To address these concerns, next week we will take all rated PvP gear on the veteran track and move it to the champion track. If the gear has been upgraded, it will keep its item level in this change. So Veteran 6 will become Champion 2, Veteran 7 will become Champion 3, and Veteran 8 items will become Champion 4. After the change is completed, current sources of Veteran rated PvP gear will become sources of Champion rated PvP gear. After these changes, this means that all Conquest gear will have a higher PvE item level potential than it did during Season 2. In Season 2, Conquest gear could be upgraded by elite players to the equivalent of Champion 7. Once this change is complete, this gear will be upgradable the same as any other Champion gear on the Champion 8. This will continue to have no effect on PvP item levels. So in other words, hey PvPers, they're making your PvE easier. Next week, you're getting yourself a big old item level bump in PvE on your PvP gear. So congratulations. I think that's a great change. That'll help a lot of folks over there feel more relevant in the outdoor world stuff they're participating in, which I think is a great change for them. So good to see.
Yes, and I apologize about how much of a nightmare this change is to talk about in an audio format.
Yeah.
Because it's incomprehensible in a way, but really the thing to know here is that you're just kind of moving up that upgrade ladder a little bit, which is nice. And so that's, it's a bit more parity going from, PvP gear into PvE content, it's a cool change. It doesn't change anything about acquisition or anything. So keep that in mind, I guess. Like, you're not going to see the gear you're acquiring change on acquisition or whatever, but it will be a little bit more. The goalposts are going a bit farther out, or however you want to think about it. It'll have a little bit more juice when you look at it from that PvE perspective. Yeah.
All right, next post, Rare Elites in Azeroth Caverns and Forbidden Reach. This comes in from Martek, who's a WoW developer, and says, we've been closely reading your feedback about the recent changes to rare elite creatures in Azeroth Cavern and Forbidden Reach. A number of you have asked why we made this change, so we wanted to give some more explanation. We also share we can also share a little bit about what might happen next. We'll use Azeroth Caverns as the example for this explanation, but all points also apply to Forbidden Reach. As shown above, which I guess they have an image for, which I don't have inside my dock, but we'll check it out. The Azeroth Cavern map regularly displayed 12 to 15 rare elite enemies available to kill at any given time. This was not an occasional jackpot moment. It was the default state of the zone for most players who came along. Because of this, we regularly saw players who might want to take down those rare elites, but they and other players were scattered around the zone. Due to the sheer number of different spawn points, players simply couldn't come across a group of players who were looking to fight the same rare, which is exactly what you talked about last week, Jason, about why this was a problem and why it was nice that they were changing it to fight the same rare. Even in the group finder, yesterday's hotfix was a step that we're taking to focus attention on a fewer rares at a time and encourage the glorious murder balls that we all know and love. Okay. That's the first time I've heard a dev use glorious murder balls instead of a post. So it just, it caught me off guard. We've absolutely heard your feedback that this feels like a quality of life reduction, particularly if you're hunting specific rares for rare cosmetic drops. We're considering a couple of additional changes to this. We've recently found an issue that was causing zones like Azeroth Caverns to be underpopulated. No kidding. We're working on a hotfix for that, and once we've deployed the fix, you should start seeing more players and have an easier time finding others to group with. We're planning to adjust drop rates of some of the rare cosmetics that come from these creatures. More details should be coming soon on that. Thanks for the feedback as always. Keep it coming. Yeah, so it's a tricky one, right? Because if I'm looking to hunt a specific rare and that rare spawns on a 30-minute timer, I can just kill that rare, go away, do something else, come back, kill that rare again, and sort of focus on what I'm doing as far as that goes. And you can get into sort of a rhythm with a group of people who are doing that, and you all sort of show up to do it regularly. You could, that's a thing. But if they suddenly make it so it's a dynamic spawn based off the amount of rares who are currently alive, and you have to wait for those rares to despawn before yours can spawn again, that's a pain. It's a total pain. So I do appreciate the quality of life reduction that they spoke of that this could have been offering for some players. I think increasing the amount of instancing that's happening in there to put more players inside Azeroth Cavern is great, because it does feel like this big empty void. I think I saw one person there last week in the entire time that I spent down there. So I would appreciate a hotfix resolving that. I am always for upping the drop rates on cosmetics off rares. I think it is silly that these things are something that you might have to farm for months to get. I think cosmetics off rares, like off rare spawns out in the open world, should be something that if you put in 5 or 6 kills, you get. Like, period. There shouldn't be there should be bad luck protection in all these cases, in my opinion, for cosmetic stuff, because there's so many cosmetics in the game and there's so much to collect. Why make it insufferably hard to try and get each and every single one of these pieces? You do get that surprise and happy moment when you get it after 6 kills. I don't feel like it's a substantially more surprise and happy, rewarding moment after 30 kills. It just isn't. It's more of a, oh, thank God, I never have to do this again. It's just a relief. It's not, it loses that excitement in a way. And I mean, I think it's okay to have some stuff that is even like that, right? Like some really super rare drop chance items, but save those for, I don't know, raid bosses or something that people can go farm every week for 10 years if they want to, or something like that, maybe, and cosmetic items. Like for rares and outdoor rares, like what could you put on one of those that would be worth just trying to catch every spawn of it forever until you get this extremely low drop? Like people don't want to spend their time doing that. So I think everything should have streak protection on it to wherever it makes sense, honestly. But because we talked about the change last week, but we had no context for it. And this was a lot of what I surmised was the reason why they were making the change. I would say Azeroth Caverns has felt underpopulated since the day it launched. I mean, it was better once I moved to Storm Rage, obviously, in terms of running into people. But like when 10.1 came out and I was out there on Belgen, I mean, obviously the game wasn't doing super hot business in 10.1. It's a lot healthier now, or for now at least. But it was just, it was a ghost town out there, and I was soloing basically the entire it's a brand new patch, and there's nobody there. So I don't know, maybe there was a bigger like underlying tech problem with populating the zone, which is good to hear. There is still stuff worth doing there. There's reasons to go there. So that's a cool change. And I mean, part of this is like the game developers are trying to present a challenge to players, and they're trying to solve a lot of different problems at once. And like, you could just have all these rares up all the time, but it creates bad gameplay experiences. I've had them, I want to kill a rare and there's 15 rares up, and there's, 4 players in the zone, and each one of them is soloing a different rare and it's taking forever and nobody's having any fun. Yeah. I think creating these kind of, I don't know what you want to call them, like hot zones around like a particular rare and keeping it more of like an event type spawn is better. I mean, I remember when Forbidden Reach came out, this applies to Forbidden Reach as well. The first couple weeks of Forbidden Reach were kind of awesome because it was
these big zone-wide callouts when a rare spawned, and everybody would just go zoom on that rare, and it was fun. And I think that's the way it should be. That's certainly the gameplay they kind of want to have. As populations decline, it's harder to do that. And then you kind of reach this critical mass where there's just not enough people ever killing the rares. So then if you just leave them on their regular spawn timers, then the whole zone is populated with them. Then, yeah, how do you funnel those few players towards them? I definitely understand the drawback from the player perspective, but by the same token, I think it's just bad game design to leave it the way that it was. So I don't know. We'll see. The olive branch of the buff drop rates is really good, but yeah, why have it be that rare at all? The streak protection is just it's a beautiful thing. So let's maybe think about that for some of these, especially like. Maybe not when a zone is brand new, right? Like maybe we don't need that in Emerald Dream because everybody's going to be in there for the next little while. But like Zaralek is not, it's not the place to be. Forbidden Reach is certainly not the place to be. So maybe then you can apply it there. You know, even something like that I think would be an okay solution for the collectors. But you know, I guess we'll see. They've reversed course on a lot of stuff that seemed like it was sacred over the years, so maybe we'll get some relief with that. I mean, like you said, there's so much stuff to collect in the game, it's sort of unthinkable to have it all. What kind of an impact is that really going to have on people's ability to, you know, have those sticks, right? If you give them too many carrots, you run out of sticks. Like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen. You know. I don't think it's going to happen, man. I'm with you. That's where I'm at. I just don't think it's going to happen. While we're talking about Zaralek Caverns, I wanted to mention one other thing, which is I was down there doing World Quests, I think it was yesterday, actually, and there were several World Quests I just walked away from because it was so not fun to do. I feel like you could go through there and easily tweak a lot of these World Quests to make them faster to complete, to make it actually a more enjoyable experience. The one in particular where I was just like, oh, I get what this is. Yeah, it's just not worth it to me. Was the one where you have to throw smells back towards a cauldron, and it takes like 4 throws per smell to get it in the cauldron, and you have to throw like 30 of them to fill the cauldron. I was like, this is dumb. You were not doing that by yourself. Yeah, forget that. This is a terrible World Quest. Let's just get rid of this. It's cool
when you do the Bucket Brigade thing and there's like 8 people there.
Right.
But yeah, when you're by yourself, it's just not happening.
Like, let's go through and tweak all of these World Quests that are supposed to be multiple person World Quests to actually be single player completion now that this is relegated old content. Like, now this is old content. Tweak all this stuff, guys. Like, that's part of the issue here that you're trying to address by like, oh, we'll up the populations and see how this. It's not going to solve these sorts of issues. Like, just go through and tweak this stuff so that it's, actually enjoyable for folks to go down and do and have fun with. So, I remembered the thing. I mentioned earlier that there was an item level increase that I was looking to mention. Renown tracks, for God's sakes, upgrade the renown tracks to give out the rewards that it actually says they're going to give. If a renown track says it's going to give you a heroic piece of gear, don't give someone a 395 piece of gear. That is incredibly disappointing for a player inside this expansion. I recognize these systems came into play at the very beginning of the expansion, and that was a relevant thing then. Why not keep renown tracks relevant by upgrading all of those item levels every time a patch came out that increased the overall item level for the raid content? Like, that makes no sense to me. Please go through the renown tracks and hand out the appropriate item level pieces of gear for the current content you're in.
Yeah, I could see both sides of that. That's kind of a tricky one, because like the renown came in with a particular set of content, right? So it's like supposed to be for that. So I don't know, maybe like just change that to like cosmetic items or something once it gets.
There's nothing more disappointing
once it's aged out.
There's nothing more disappointing than being like, oh, I finally hit renown 25. Here's your 378 gloves, and you're like, what? Like, why?
Yeah, that was good a year ago, or maybe not even. But like, it wasn't even good a year ago. But yeah, that is a weird spot that with that stuff, and maybe just like update the UI to more clearly explain what you're getting or something.
No, it's not even about the UI, because the UI, if you mouse over, will show you the piece of gear you're going to get. It'll show you this low item level thing. It's just no longer a carrot. It's just like, hey, it's something I can vendor. I'd rather you gave me 500 gold than gave me the 78 gold for these gloves, right? Like, honestly, it's that kind of situation. So I don't know why in a game where we're constantly trying to invite people to come back in and jump into the game and participate with systems like Renown, which are expansion long systems that sometimes they add to, but often they don't. I mean, they did during, Shadowlands. We saw something similar where they added to a track that wasn't Renown, but they added to a track. I don't know why you wouldn't keep all those rewards relevant. It really doesn't punish anyone, because the people who were doing the content when it was current got current content rewards, and they finished their Renown track. Good for them. People who did the Renown 2 or 3 raid tiers later get rewards that are relevant to that Renown track. Like I don't see how it punishes any of those systems. Would you have people trying to min-max, holding off on, doing world quests and getting rewards from doing questing to try and have that thing roll over at the exact time that a patch hit to try and make sure they get it? Like, do we care that people are doing that?
It's like never good enough to even bother doing that.
Exactly.
Anyway, I don't know. Like, maybe you just make it so all of the Renown gear rewards are at parity when season rolls or something, or I don't know. I mean, it is sort of the weird thing about the way Renown has been this expansion, right? And this is the first time we've had expansion Renown reps like come in a patch. In Shadowlands, you had your Renown with your Covenant, and of course then you could switch Covenants or whatever eventually, and then you could Renown up with all of them. But the reps they added in were traditional reps, or some slightly untraditional reps like in 9.1, but they weren't Renown. So, maybe that this is a missed opportunity with having this thing where a new Renown-based rep comes in patch content. It's really the first time they've done that, and yeah, I think it's just it's weird having this stuff that you hand out that is pointless.
Yeah,
it's utterly pointless to give somebody a 378 piece of gear in 2023, soon to be 2024. And you will have people coming in who are now, maybe they're looking forward to War Within, or they're looking forward to these changes, or they just want to see the Emerald Dream because they waited so long, and so they come back for this patch. And I mean, we've heard from some people in the Discord and other channels just through the show who are either newer to the game itself or back into Dragonflight for the first time since launch. And it's hard to navigate this stuff, and they don't know what to prioritize. And it's actually hard to guide them because it's hard to explain what they should even be doing because there's so many things. And then, one of the main things the game puts in front of your face is Renown, and then it's handing you out, pieces of gear that are outdated by 65 plus item levels. It's just, it's a missed opportunity at absolute least, right? Like, if you wanted to be like that, and it's like, well, this is 10.0 content, these are 10.0 reps that give up 10.0 gear, fine, but then communicate that like this is outdated, and communicate that players should be focusing their time in Emerald Dream and with Dream Wardens and through all those systems as the place where they want to go, then that they can explore these other things as more of a at their own pace because they're less relevant to their overall character power.
I don't know. To me, it was just one of those cases where I realized it this week. I don't know which rep it was, but there was a rep that I was getting close to a piece of gear with, and I looked at the dream rewards that I was getting, being like, oh hey, I'm going to get a 454 helm for just buying off a vendor because I hit Renown 18 or 15 or 14, whatever it was, where I got the helm that I could buy. And then I look over at, the Dragonflight or Dragon Expedition or whatever, right? And you're like, oh, I get a 376 or a 378 piece of gear for hitting like Renown 23. And I'm like, man, like, how unexciting is this system at the moment for people to actually participate in? Like, it's just a very strange thing to be like, it would be so easy to bump those up every time there was a patch with new raid content that came out that increased the overall item level that people were doing, to just bump all these pieces up in item level. And they're all like gloves and pants and helms and what, they're not like trinkets that are going to become broken because they got scaled up too high. Like, that's not even a case in those situations. You're not getting a ring that's going to be really stupid broken ring because it has this on use effect or something like that on it. They're generic pieces of gear. Just increase the item levels on them as patch content comes out, and you would give everyone who comes back to the expansion, no matter when they came back to the expansion, a carrot to go after for doing these renowns regularly. Because right now you're not. And so it seemed like a very strange situation to look at and be like, oh, this is, as you said, this is a missed opportunity for them to actually make this system really attractive throughout the entire expansion. So I hope that happens next time they're sort of revisiting Renown, because it really puts a damper on those reps to be like, here you go, here's 58 gold. Congratulations. You're like, great. I just pick it up and put it into a trash can next to me. Wonderful. Like, it's such a strange thing.
58 gold is kind of nice considering some of the Dream Wardens reps are just like, you hit the renown threshold and you're like, here's 75 flight stones. At least the gold hangs around, you know? Yeah. I mean, like, granted, if you're upgrading a lot of stuff, like, flight stones are valuable, but you get them from literally everything that you do. So, yeah, I mean, not every renown rank is going to be a real banger, right? Like, you're going to have some ranks that just not a lot of stuff happen at, but I don't know. Yeah, I didn't really consider what you were saying because I didn't think about it, you know? I just kind of finished those reps, like, early 23 and just sort of moved on. But yeah, like, you have the system, and it's a cool system. I think Renown overall, I would say, is a big win for the game. I think it's better than the way they've kind of presented that stuff in the past. But, you know, it's certainly a learning opportunity here from the way adding a new Renown in a patch works compared to the Renowns that you launch with. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Realm expectations for Season of Discovery. We're starting to get a little bit more information since this thing kicks off on Thursday. So for folks to sort of get used to this. This comes in from Foibles, who's a WoW developer. Says, hey, everyone, I'm Foibles, also known as Tom, which is a great... There's a great parody between Foibles and Tom. I'm a senior producer on the World of Warcraft server and live ops team, and I would like to share what we are preparing for Realms with the launch of Season of Discovery. You may have noticed with the launch of Classic Hardcore that there weren't a lot of Realms. Was Classic's Hardcore's launch a small experience? Heck no. Hardcore continues to be experienced by a large number of players, and we have been thrilled to see so many players, new and old, join in and experience World of Warcraft Classic in a new, exciting way. At the outset of any launch, our goal has always been to create a healthy, enduring Realms, and behind the scenes, we deploy a tech patch, which is 1.14.4, that allowed us to significantly increase the realm capacity of a single Classic era realm. With this higher realm capacity and fewer realms, we avoided the need for disruptive character migration options as realm populations ebbed and flowed. Cool. Learn a little, peek under the hood as far as technology goes. For Season of Discovery, we're going to repeat this process. We will launch with a handful of realms that can support a lot of players, so you can feel confident in your realm choice. Please note, we will actively manage the realm sizes at launch, so you might see sporadic queues as the population spreads out and we ensure realm sizes remain roughly equal. If Season of Discovery proves hugely popular, as we think it might, we will, of course, be ready with additional realms if needed. Please look forward to announcements of launch realm names soon. Another topic that comes up each time we talk about realms in faction balance on PvP realms, we've received a lot of feedback on since 2019. We hear you. Sorry, I want to start this part over again. Another topic that comes up each time we talk about realms is faction imbalance on PvP realms. We've received a lot of feedback on this since 2019. We hear you, and with Season of Discovery, we're going to try something new. This season's PvP realms have been designed to maintain faction balance as they grow. Yes, this is actually happening. However, there is a potential cost to this faction balance that we want to make sure you're aware of. If one faction is significantly more dominant on a PvP realm, there is a very real likelihood that faction selection may be temporarily limited on that realm. That said, our overarching goal for Season of Discovery is for it to be a fun and smooth experience. We are prepared to change course if necessary. Your requests for faction balance have been heard loud and clear. This is a new direction for us and one that we're excited to try. All right, let's take a moment here and just absorb the fact that they are forcing faction balance on servers on this Season of Discovery. They're actually going to turn off the ability to pick a faction on a server if the server is so out of balance one way versus another. I honestly kind of like it. I think it's kind of cool. It's kind of neat.
You know what I like about it? I like the following about it. For years, players have said that they want this, but I don't think this is actually going to be a lot of fun.
I think there'll be a lot of people who won't be able to join their friend's guild. I think that's my big concern, right?
That could be a possibility for sure. But I think that, like, at this platonic ideal of the 50-50 balanced, faction balanced PvP realm, I don't think that's the experience players really want. So I'll be curious to see how this works out, and if the tech works okay, and if limiting the faction creation works, and they end up with like relatively balanced populations, and then if people actually enjoy the world PvP. I think having realms that kind of heavily favor one faction or the other is just always the way that it worked back when, back in vanilla and everything. And it's not like you wouldn't see big groups of players switch servers to a realm where their faction was underrepresented so that then they could bolster the ranks for world PvP and stuff. So it's going to be a whole different thing. So we'll see how people feel about it. I'm really curious to see if they can achieve some of this kind of balance and how players react to it. So it's interesting for sure. I did not see this coming. The discussion about, like, we kind of got some discussion about at BlizzCon about classic realm size and what they were able to do with hardcore realms, right? And why there were so few of them, but the experience was smooth because the tech was just so much better that they could have much bigger realms. That's awesome. I love to hear that. I like the idea of holding the realms, close to the vest, the realm names and types and everything. But some of that stuff has been, data mined, or I don't know if it's on like a PTR client or something. Wowhead was able to grab some stuff today that has not been made public, but it's all placeholder. All the realms are named a realm. So it's not like what they're going to launch as. We are about, 48 hours? We're a little bit more than 48 hours away from these realms launching, and we don't know names yet, and we don't know what the split is going to be with the types and everything.
Yeah. And
I think it's a good thing. How much lead time do you really need to decide with your social group which realm you're going to play on?
No, like 30
Maybe
minutes.
A couple hours. I mean, like Discord exists, right? All these tools exist to keep us connected to each other. Just text your buddies, DM them, whatever. Hey, we're all playing here, versus, what we saw with Classic launch, when Vanilla Classic launched in 19, of, your big streamers and these other movers and shakers who decide that, okay, this is the realm. Everybody who matters is playing on this realm. All these other realms are incorrect. So you just roll here, and then we're gonna make this the good realm, right?
Yeah.
And that happened with a couple realms and a couple regions at vanilla launch, and I think you obviously don't want it to happen with Season Discovery, but also you're not going to have as many realms. So the potential for that sort of mega realm versus dead realm parity is probably lower to begin with. But I like it. I mean, I'm really interested in playing Season Discovery. I don't know how I'm going to find time, but I'll make time, I guess. I'm excited for the content, and some friends of mine who've been out for a really long time are excited because it's approachable. That progressive level cap and leveling to 25 and then getting to do endgame is very attractive to people. So I think having people be able to play together without a lot of barriers is going to be important for this season. The PvP thing kind of plays against that, but I think, there's a lot of players who know they don't want to be on a PvP realm for any kind of vanilla WoW, and so we'll let the PvP players do their thing, and go from there. And I think the way they're doing it is smart. Some people have not been real happy about this from reactions I've seen and stuff about, like, we're 2 days away and we don't have realm names yet. Like, I don't think we need them, and I think it's better to just have people make a snap decision as to which realm they're going to and let the communities form up that way than have this, like, meta,
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're going to do tier rankings for which, Season Discovery server you're supposed to be on, and everybody's making, like, YouTube videos or so. I'm exaggerating a bit, but that would happen if we had these realm names a month in advance. That's the way it would be. There'd be some tool out there to show you, like, which streamer was playing on which realm.
There'd be a website, sure, yeah.
Yeah, like, all that stuff would be out there, and this way, servers are going up in the afternoon on Thursday, and yeah, you just huddle up with your friends, decide where you're going, and make a tune, and off you go, and then see where it lands. So I mean, it's going to be a lot fewer realms than they had with Vanilla Classic launch. So that, that's another piece of the puzzle for sure. But I think the way they've been going about it is smart. It doesn't really bother me. I'll play. I know like ZTH is going to have a presence somewhere in there, and then once we get the names and they figure out, where we all want to go, then we'll go there, and it'll be really cool. So I'm happy about it. I think the way they did it is cool, and I'm really interested to see how people feel about the faction balanced realms.
Yeah. All right. So I'll finish this off here. Again, this feature will only be turned on for Season of Discovery PvP realms. You will always be able to roll either faction as you wish on PvE realms. We encourage everyone who isn't committed to the challenges and difficulties of PvP to consider a non-PvP realm for Season of Discovery. As an old WoW veteran myself, I can tell you playing on a balanced faction PvP realm can be a double-edged sword. There are awesome and fun challenges that await, but also the potential for hindrances that you might not expect. Your favorite farming spots might be a bit more spicy than they used to be. We think this Season of Discovery is going to be a lot of fun, and these changes will help ensure that everyone enjoys a great experience all season long, and we're excited and looking forward to adding some extra seasoning to Season of Discovery PvP realms. We're being intentionally vague here, which I understand is frustrating, but as much as I want to dive into details, as a engineering producer, this hurts. We really don't want everyone to try and metagame this. By balance, we mean in a perfect world, we're shooting for 50-50 faction split, but no matter which way we choose to try and enforce faction balance, there's room for those values to change based off player behavior. Overall, we want you to feel very confident that if you roll PvP this season, you will be on some of the most balanced PvP realms in Classic's history. I'd also like to point out that he spelled behavior with O-U-R, which means that this person is either British or Canadian, which I appreciate.
I think he's British.
There you go.
I think he said in some tweet somewhere. But yeah, there was a bunch of stuff on Twitter this week about, I think that prompted this post and everything like that. So, some suggestion of RP PvP realms, which sounds really out of control for Season of Discovery. Yeah.
All right. Season of Discovery launch times. This is from Kyvax. 1 p.m. Pacific time is when this kicks off. And they actually show you the sort of wealth of time that this could potentially be launch times for everyone. So Hawaii's 11 a.m. and Sydney, Australia is 8 a.m. But it's 8 a.m. the next day. It's December 1st. So this launches at 1 p.m. Pacific time on November 30th. You can sort of do your time switch for wherever you are. But if you're in Brisbane, then it's 7 a.m. If you're in Newfoundland, it's 5:30 p.m. So it really just depends on where you're at. But it's coming out Thursday or Friday, depending on which time zone you are a part of. Okay, Jason, we have arrived at Boss Guides. We are going to do the first 2 bosses of the raid. LFR did some weird things with doing bosses 1, 2, 7 in the first wing, which I pointed out in the first week, which I thought was weird, but also cool that they did 2 tier set bosses in the first wing of LFR. Really trying to make sure those pieces get out there. So we're going to talk about Gnarlroot, and we're going to talk about Igira, the second boss of the Igira, the Cruel, the second boss in there. So let's kick it off. I guess I'll read the spiel first. Once a devoted protector of the Emerald Dream, this formerly majestic ancient has been ravaged by flame and now seeks to destroy. A little Metallica reference there with seek and destroy. All right, Jason, what are we looking at room-wise for Gnarlroot?
So Gnarlroot, you fight in a big circular room. The room is actually huge, and it's pretty round. There's not really much terrain to deal with. I would recommend, at least to start, to pull him to one side, because he shoots out lashers and stuff, and you want to kind of cut down where they can go. Otherwise, you got the group potentially running way away from each other. So for positioning, I would say, pull them off to one side and just kind of set up there. But then once stuff starts landing on the ground, once the lashers are out, then you can move them into, more into the middle or, somewhere away from bad stuff on the ground. It's a little tricky because it seems like, well, if he's just going to shoot stuff everywhere, let's just fight him in the middle. But then stuff is literally everywhere. So going to the side, you can cut the angle down a bit, and then it makes it easier for people to get to it. I guess we'll start with what he does to the tank.
Yep, tank's always first.
The tank mechanic is called Dreadfire Barrage, and he shoots missiles at his aggro target. It's like a channeled thing, so it's like a 2-second channel, and he shoots like 5 missiles or something. I don't know exactly how many, but each hit deals physical damage and Shadow Flame damage, and you also get a debuff that makes you take increased Shadow Flame damage per each impact. So the last one is going to hit a lot harder than the first one did. It's a 16% stacking debuff per hit. So, use a cooldown or at least have something lined up for the end of the channel. And then tank swap once it completes. It's some like boss mods and stuff will kind of start chirping at you like every time this cast goes off, which is not, each missile from the channel basically, and that can get real confusing. Then you have both tanks debuffed, and the tank is debuffed for a long time. So just load up something for this cast and then switch. So that's the tank mechanic. The other stuff that Naru's going to do in main phase, it's sort of like this is like a A/B type of fight. So you sort of have these rotating mechanics that happen. So Flaming Pestilence is one of the things that he does in main phase, and this is where the lashers come into play. So Naru makes Patches of Earth explode with Shadow Flame that inflicts damage to players, so try not to stand in them.
Basically, there are fiery red lines that come out from the boss that are lines of swirlies you don't want to stand in, and when the swirlies erupt, they leave behind lashers in their place.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty obvious you don't want to stand in this stuff, right? And it'll form up some lashers like in a bunch of spots around the room. So this is why it's good to bring them to the wall. Now on normal, the lashers will kind of just become active in different waves automatically. You do want to round them up and kill them. On heroic and up, the lashers will actually be dormant in the ground. And so you need to make them become active by hitting them with fire damage, which you can do from a debuff that the boss puts out. If you ignore them, the boss will spawn all of them at once when he goes into B phase, and you don't want that. You want to chip away at them. Now, the lashers themselves, when they wake up, they do Shadow Flame damage to the raid. They have an ability called Shadow Spines. It's like a thorn attack at their aggro target. It does Shadow Flame damage. It also is 10% damage increase taken to their target and a bleed, and it stacks. This might point out why you want to have like a few of these up every cast instead of waiting to the end and then having all of them up at once, because this will just wreck your tanks.
Yeah, so in order to activate these, on heroic mode, you could use Control Burn, but we'll talk about what that is just as a normal ability first. So regularly, Naru marks a few players with a circle that deals damage to nearby players, and after 6 seconds, players drop a fire pool, which remains until intermission. So you want to drop them away from the raid typically. However, on heroic, the lashers are of course slumbering, so you want to drop these pools on top of the dormant lashers, which then activates them and pops them up out of the ground. And as Jason said, you can control how many of these you're waking up based off of where you're dropping these circles, so that you can actually control how many of them you're fighting at a time to not get overwhelmed or create even further issues that exist there.
Yeah, it's on normal. You don't have to worry about it as much because they'll just kind of be there. So when they're up, kill them. On heroic, you want to make sure that you're getting your debuffs down on top of them to activate them, and you want to make sure you get a good handful of them with every cast. Controlled Burn is the other thing the boss does in this phase, and this is the thing that on heroic and up will wake up those dormant lashers. Control Burn is a Shadow Flame plague.
I just described what Control Burn does, so you're good with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, just keep in mind, like, if you're doing this on normal, just get it away.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to worry about positioning on it. It's not going to do anything. Your job is to just not kill anybody with it. But if you're doing on heroic, then your job is to get whatever you can get. 5, 6 lashers, whatever you can get, especially in the beginning, right? Just get them burned, and then everybody should switch and kill them because you don't want them killing your tank.
Yeah.
But I mean, on normal, this is a very simple boss. On heroic, there's a little bit more technique to it.
Yeah.
The other things you have to worry about in A phase, the Shadow Flame cleave it's a big frontal cone. It's pretty obvious, so you need to just avoid this. Just don't be in it. Try to be kind of near the boss so you can cut that angle down and get out of it quicker, but it can be hard if you're running away with a controlled burn or whatever. But keep that in mind. And he does a thing called Tortured Scream, which is I don't think there's any counterplay to this really except healing through it.
No, it's just raid-wide burst damage.
Yeah, it's just a big nuke, and then it also leaves a dot. So just be mindful of that. If you're a healer, when Tortured Scream's coming in, have something loaded up. If you're low and you have some kind of personal or something, I mean, again, this is not a really punishing or dangerous fight, but try to have something, so you don't die to that.
Yeah.
So
now the the intermission, right, is what we're going to move into.
Yeah. It's like an intermission. It's a bit of a weird. It's weird. It's like an intermission and a B phase kind of rolled into one. It happens on a timer. I think he's got a energy bar, and when the energy bar gets full, it's about like 90 seconds or so. Then he's gonna cast Doom Cultivation, and that's how it's time to switch into the next phase.
He moves to the middle of the room. He spawns a whole bunch of roots that go out in different directions from him. That is the intermission. That's a very clear signal as to what's happening.
Yeah, you're gonna know, right? Because he's gonna, like you said, he's gonna move to the middle. The room is gonna change with the Doom roots. So, and also he's gonna stop taking damage.
Yes.
So if you watch your damage numbers go down, then that's why, right? So, yeah, Doom Cultivation does a bunch of different things, sort of simultaneously or interconnectedly. The Doom roots are going to come out. He's going to get a buff where he takes 99% reduced damage. He pulses Shadow Flame damage repeatedly. And also, he spawns a puddle of toxic loam underneath him, which means you can't stand within 6 yards of him.
Yeah.
The only way to get this to stop is to destroy all the Doom roots. And the only way to destroy all the Doom roots is to set them on fire.
Yeah.
So the Doom roots come out in like 4 different directions, and they branch off into a bunch of little segments. When they are spawning, they will actually do damage and knock you away if you're like in the spot where they spawn. So just back up, keep moving, give them some room. Once you see kind of the direction it's going in, if you move out to the side, then you can usually be safe. Now, Searing Bramble will also be cast, which is like flaming chunks of bramble flying off of Gnarl Root. You'll see the impact location, and you want to soak these, because when you soak them, you become Ember Charred.
You basically are catching a giant ball of fire from the sky that lights you on fire, and you run screaming into the roots to light all of them on fire. That's really what it is.
Yeah, that's pretty much the effect here. Now, on normal mode, you don't have to do anything to get. You just are on fire and you just run into the roots. Yeah, I think you do still have the Searing Brambles that need to be soaked, because otherwise it does like raid damage. But you don't have to worry about it in terms of loading up your fire debuff to set the roots on fire. Yeah. If you're learning this fight on normal, just run into the roots and burn them all up. For heroic, people want to make sure that they're participating. Make sure you're soaking the Searing Brambles and getting your Ember Charred debuff, and then using that to burn up the roots. So do that. The faster you do it, the faster you get out of this phase. And that's really good, because you're taking raid-wide damage. Yeah. Just remember not to run underneath Gnarl Root. It does I think on normal mode, it does like 500 plus K per tick if you're within 6 yards of him, and it slows you 80%, and it stacks. So you'll be dead in about 2 or 3 ticks tops if you run underneath of him. Don't do that.
Yeah, no, Toxic Loam, very bad. Very, very bad.
Yeah, stay far away from him while the roots are up.
Yeah.
But once that last root burns up, he gains Uprooted Agony, which makes him take double damage. He also pulses Shadow Flame damage every second for 20 seconds, but he's taking double damage for 20 seconds. So this is a good time to Hero, Lust, Time Warp, whatever the Evoker thing is called, and light him up. It's a great burst window. Now, after he does this, he's going to gain Rising Mania, which is I believe it's a permanent 10% damage increase, and it stacks.
Yep, correct.
So now he goes back into A phase, and you just kind of repeat that whole process with the flaming pestilence with the lashers and with the controlled burn and the cleave cone. And it's going to be a little bit harder because he's doing 10% more damage, but he's also going to be way more percent dead. And you might, at that point, you might be able to kill him before he even goes back into B phase. And if not, then he's going to be really dead by the end of second B phase, right? So that's pretty much it. I mean, this is a pretty straightforward fight. I think the mechanics read pretty well. It doesn't really ask a whole lot of you in terms of execution. I would say, if you're looking at the fight for the first time or just you want to get a feel for it, the big stuff to keep in mind is if you're on heroic, using control burn properly to make sure that you get enough lashers out to keep them under control. And if you're on normal, just getting away from the group with your control burn.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight, right? Because most people are killing this fight in 4 to 5 minutes when they're doing it as a group on heroic. It's not a super long fight. You could be killing it a little bit faster or a little bit slower than that if it's your first time seeing it. Maybe it's a 6-minute fight for you. In those situations, hanging on to heroism till not the first time you see roots, but the second time you get the uprooted agony is actually a better way to go if you think your team's going to live that long. Obviously, if you lose a DPS between, the start of the fight and you're down players, it's probably better to use heroism earlier. But ideally, you're using it during the second uprooted agony, during the second uprooted agony when he has the debuff for the 100% increase, because then he also takes the 10% additional on top of that. So you can actually just absolutely destroy the boss in that period of time, because you're not just doing 100% increased damage, you're doing 110% increased damage during that window. It's actually probably 120 because it stacks. So just keep that in mind. But if you're a group that's pumping through this place regularly, I'm sure we'll get to the point, especially in maybe a month from now, where most teams are killing him in like 2.5 minutes. So first uprooted agony that happens, you're blowing heroism, the boss is down with an execute range, you are killing the boss before you even see another one of these. So I think overall, it's a great starter fight. I think there is enough mechanics in this for players to sort of have to figure stuff out and recognize that this is a raid boss and there's, raid mechanics that you have to do. But I don't think it's punishing enough with one-shot mechanics and whatnot, other than running through the middle of the boss, which is pretty easy to learn not to do. Don't touch the hot stuff is basically what that one is. I think they started off well with Naru.
Yeah, it's more of a boss than some of the other first bosses we've seen in this expansion have been. And I don't really want a lot from a first boss. I want it to just kind of be a loot pinata to get you started. And so this one is okay. I think this one serves that purpose pretty well. It's a really thematically cool fight, and it kind of sets the whole stage, right? You're fighting this like burning tree, and you're fighting it with fire, and that's okay. That's the whole thing that we're doing here. So it sets the stage pretty well. And yeah, I mean, I think, we'll probably get to the point before too long where you're just heroing at the top on this fight because it just shortens it overall. Like, yeah, okay, you're not getting heroism during that. You're executing
during the uprooted agony anyways. So
right. Yeah. Like you're basically killing him in A phase. I think it will probably get there eventually. But that's the biggest stuff to take away from this is watch control burn and make sure everybody's bought in on burning the roots. If you got everybody trying to burn up the roots, man, you're going to get out of that phase really fast, and then you can nuke the boss. So
it's way less dangerous that way.
There's nothing else to do anyway, right? Like it's not like the boss is taking any damage. So, if you see any, I don't know, hard casts flying at the boss during this phase, you might want to have a conversation with your crew. Like, hey guys, the boss is taking 99% reduced damage. Please run around and burn up the roots. Thanks. There's nothing else to kill, I mean, you might have to clean up some lashers. There will probably be some lashers alive as you transition into that phase, and they do need to die. And then after that, it's just all about burning up the roots, and then you can nuke the boss down.
Yeah.
But yeah, really good first fight. I mean, I think a bit more challenging than what we saw with Dragon Boss in Aberrus and with Elemental Draconid guy in Vault of the Incarnates. It's a little bit more involved. There's a little bit more going on, but it's still like a straight up first boss.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Agira the Cruel, driven by cruelty, which not surprising. Agira is able to forge devastating weapons from the screams of her enemies. With a verdant realm of the Emerald Dream, the torturer seeks to expand her arsenal. I don't know how she crafts weapons with the screams of her enemies, but cool. She's like some sort of sound weaver.
It's like really weird Jarden magic,
It is, yeah, apparently. All right. Man, what's this room like, Jason? How's this room set up?
So this room is kind of like oblong. It's a bit wider than it is long. And you'll notice some like weapons impaled through some various NPCs at a couple different points in the room, making kind of a triangle in the sides and in the back, like the entrance where you come in. It gears up on basically sort of like a stage type of area, and you want to just tank her kind of right where she spawns and just spin her around. In terms of what she does as a tank, she has one of my favorite mechanics, that they put on bosses for tanks. Vicious Swing means that her melee attacks also strike the next closest player. We call this a Saber Lash, back from like ZA. Yeah, so we're like, oh yeah, it's a Saber Lash, like from 18 years ago, and people are just supposed to know what that means. But it's a Saber Lash. If no targets found, her primary target struck again. So you don't want to get double hit. So you want to keep your two tanks right on top of each other. The wrinkle here is that each melee strike also applies Drenched Blades. Drenched Blades is a Shadow Flame bleed that lasts for 20 seconds. It ticks every 2 seconds for 20 seconds, and it stacks. So, you need to have an aggro target here. Both of your tanks are going to be taking melee swings, so they need to be mitigating as much as they can from those all the time. Then you want to switch off Drenched Blades. I think around like 5 or 6 stacks is the timing where it falls off and can be switched around. But basically, she also has some pretty long animations where she's not meleeing. So if she's in one of those and you're not bleeding and the other guy is bleeding, then probably taunt her. It'll be fine. That's the main tank. The biggest tank thing is making sure that you and your other tank are like attached at the hip for this fight and pointing her at the wall near where she spawns.
Right.
Just keep everybody away from her and keep yourselves as close to each other as you can get.
Right. Now, you mentioned at the top of this, the room is kind of like a bit like a triangle because where the weapons are, because there are 3 weapons. And during this fight, the entire gimmick of this fight is a gear will go around and equip a weapon, use that weapon, discard the weapon, and equip another one. You can decide which one she's going to equip throughout this fight. And obviously, if she tries to equip a 4th weapon, you die because there isn't a 4th weapon. That's the overall gimmick to this fight. Now, Jason, you want to go over the first ability that we should probably talk about here?
Yeah, from the weapon abilities specifically, or should we talk about her general abilities that happen all the time?
Let's talk about what we're supposed to be soaking to predict which weapon she picks up. We can force her to pick up weapons.
Yeah. So, this is I found this to be really important, and on normal and heroic, there's particular weapons that I much prefer. Let's talk about the axe. I believe the axe is on the left side of the room as you walk in. And what you want to do here is have a handful of players. You don't want the whole raid soaking this, I find, especially in heroic, because you get sort of a gnarly debuff, and you don't want that on the entire raid. So I send my ranged crew over there to go soak up the circle around the axe on the left. And once she gets that, she gets Hacking Torment, which gives her the ability Umbral Destruction. And Umbral Destruction is a smash on her current target. It does Shadow Flame damage to all players, and it's reduced by the number of players within 10 yards of the impact location. I think she only casts this twice total once she has the weapon. So it's not some permanent thing you're going to have to deal with for the next 5 minutes or whatever, but you do have to react to it. On normal, you can just have everybody stack in both of these, soak up all the it's a meteor soak as I usually call it out to the team. It splits the damage, so have a bunch of people in there. On normal, it's very simple. On heroic, it's also very simple, but it's a little bit more nuanced because it leaves a debuff called Brutalized, and Brutalized means that you're unable to diminish the damage of the next Umbral Destruction. So you want to split the group, and you want to split tanks, and you want to have one tank and half the group take the one Umbral Destruction and then swap it over. Taunt swap, have the other half of the group in the other Umbral Destruction, and then you're pretty much done. I think she only casts it twice, even on heroic. So, it's super punishing if you do it wrong, right? Like, if you don't have enough people in there, then everybody who's in it's just going to die. And if you don't pay attention to the swap, then a lot of people are going to die. But it's a relatively simple mechanic overall. It's not really that punishing. Just requires a little bit of forethought and some planning. You know, you can say exactly who you want, except for maybe the tanks in each of the soaks. So yeah, it's it's a pretty familiar mechanic, and it's not. I mentioned it, but the thing to point out here is the ability she gets from these weapons. They're not like a permanent upgrade to her in combat. She has them for like the duration of that phase. She like uses the power of the weapon up and then moves on to something else. Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit about how you forced her to actually pick the axe in the first place with Mark of Torment.
Yeah. Okay. So when Mark for Torment goes out, there's actually, this is kind of nasty. Like, it's a big knockback, and it is a lot of Shadow Flame damage that goes out. And then she starts, she's just like channeling these sparks that you have to avoid. They're like 4-yard circles. She does, there's like a debuff going out during it from the soak that I sort of mentioned. And you'll see circles that get diminished in size around each of these weapons. And, you know, once they get all the way shrunk down, then that's where she's going to go to get the weapon. So you want everybody who's soaking. And again, you want like a small cadre of your raid soaking. You don't want everybody doing it because of flesh mortification. So yeah, you want them to all go to the same weapon and soak it up as fast as possible to, stop that channel.
Yeah, and whatever weapon you soak is the weapon that is selected for her to use next. So you're saying top of the fight, your team prefers to go left, soak the axe first, so that she selects the axe during this.
Yeah, I like that for normal and heroic, because it keeps her in one spot, and it's relatively low burden of execution. Right? It's an easy mechanic to deal with, and she stays put the whole time. You just park her right where you want to tank her, and everybody can just sit there and nuke her, and then you do your little soak, and that's about it.
Which weapon should you soak next?
So the weapon I like to soak next is in the back. There's a sword by where the raid enters the room. She gains Slicing Torment from this, and then she starts doing this attack called Smashing Viscera. It's a leap attack. She's going to pick a player's location, and she's going to leap there. It does Shadow Flame damage in an 8-yard impact and knocks you back. And it also does Shadow Flame damage, some Shadow Flame damage to the whole raid, even if you're not in the impact zone. On heroic and up, this is also coupled with devastation, which means when she lands from that leap, it's going to do waves of, like, radiating waves of damage out from it that you have to dodge. So a little bit more complicated, but still, you're going to be on the move in that phase anyway because she's leaping around. You don't want to get leapt on. So just keep moving. She does that. She does like 2 leaps back to back and then resets, and I think she does the whole thing twice. So just be aware of that. Once she has that soaked up, that she's going to be leaping around. So be ready to move. Be ready to, reposition with movement abilities or whatever if necessary, because, it is kind of hectic with the amount of stuff moving around the room at that point, especially on heroic. And one of the things to be aware of here is the positioning with the boss, because the boss is going to be moving around by herself. The tanks are not going to be moving her. You do have vicious swing. So tanks need to make sure that they're not sort of drifting apart too far from each other as they're repositioning around these mechanics. And especially like melee DPS, if you're up in that stack, you don't want to go hang out with a tank. You want to go out more towards like the middle of the room if it's safe, or out to the sides, so that you are not going to end up catching a melee once she resets. The timing can be a little tricky on that. I mean, again, it's easy to plan around, but in the heat of the moment, if you step towards the tank by mistake, then you might end up, getting smacked with a melee swing, and you don't really want that. So that's the other little wrinkle there with this one. This plays off, I think, that Saberlash mechanic a lot more than the Umbral Destruction does.
Yeah, now this leaves, and I know why you leave this to last, the daggers as the last thing with their Heartstopper ability. That puts a circle around the majority of the raid. You each get your own 8-yard circle, and you all got to spread out. And the moment there's basically a healing absorb on you, and the moment that healing absorb is healed fully, the circle erupts and launches orbs in every direction that you have to dodge. So how do you guys deal with this best, Jason? Oh, and one last thing. If you don't heal up the people who have the circles on them, they explode and do massive raid-wide damage. So you have to heal them up and make sure all the circles go away.
Yeah, it's not like a suggestion. Yeah. We deal with this by killing the boss before she ever needs to soak a third weapon.
Yeah, right.
We haven't run into her needing to soak a third weapon on either normal or heroic, which is not like a flex. I mean, this is low difficulty stuff. And I think, if you hero at the top and you can, you have your whole raid alive, she doesn't have any like burst windows where she takes extra damage. So do what you can. Like the animations and stuff when she's channeling her abilities and like soaking up these weapons, they're very long. You have like 5 or 6 minutes before she's going to go for that third weapon. So that's my advice, is just kill her before it happens if you possibly can. We actually have not killed her with stoking the Heartstopper knife on purpose so far. We just don't even bother. And I think that's kind of the way it's designed on the lower difficulties, is just you should be able to put her down before you have to have that weapon that you don't really want. But, if for some reason it is your weapon of choice, or, you have to deal with it because of throughput, then you have to make sure that healers are ready to go when Heartstopper goes out. Make sure that people are getting healed up.
Yeah, it's like a 600,000 bubble on everybody that has to get healed off. So it is like healing cooldown time to try and pop this thing on everyone that needs to be popped on. You'll probably want the boss against a wall, because that way you have the least amount of exposure to the orbs that are happening. Healers don't want to be setting up too much healing ahead of time, because you want to give people enough time to spread out. So obviously druids throwing up pots and stuff is fine, but you don't want like a huge amount of healing cooldowns immediately popping the moment this ability goes out, because then everyone just explodes in the middle of the raid and kills everybody. So you have to give people time to spread, and then you have to heal them all off. However, you only have 15 seconds to do this. So people need to move immediately away to be able to get these things spread out enough to be able to pop them and make this actually a viable thing for you to do as a mechanic. So overall, it is not a fun thing to try and deal with. And as Jason said, if you can just skip it, that's probably your best bet. On heroic mode, players actually send out 2 waves of orbs. It's not just one. So you have one big pulse of orbs, then you have a second big pulse of orbs that come off each player when this is happening, which makes it really hard to dodge all of them. So this is another one of those phases where it's like, hey, stop what you're doing and dodge, and then, okay, resume what you're doing. Because you're going to have to deal with it twice if you choose to use the Heartstopper earlier in the fight as your ability. But I'm with Jason, save the dagger to last. This is going to be the hardest mechanic for the majority of your raid to deal with. On this boss fight. I think overall this is probably a pretty high mechanic boss for a second boss, but I like that you can kind of dumb it down by selecting the order in which you have to deal with mechanics. Because of an ability like this, because of an ability like Heartstopper, it makes this boss actually really interesting as a second boss, because you're like, oh, okay, there is this really crappy mechanic to deal with that's very difficult for people to deal with. Let's just avoid it as much as we possibly can, right? You could technically have heroism all set up so that you just try and skip this as much as possible, right? Which I think is a great way to sort of line up for this boss, is just being like, yeah, you know what, let's try and skip Heartstopper.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I've done mostly so far, and it's worked out pretty well. I mean, you make a good point that this is kind of a mechanic intensive fight for a second boss, but I think there's some smart design that mitigates it a bit. One thing being that she doesn't do all of the possible mechanics at once. Like, there's no overlaps with the really bad stuff. She only picks one and then does it a couple times.
Oh man, if this boss fight was one of those fights where once you'd chosen a weapon, that weapon lingered around and continued to do its thing until and it just kept being additive to where it would be a nightmare fight for a lot of these.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why I expected it would work when I first started doing it. And I was pleasantly surprised. You have a lot of time between her abilities charging up and stuff. And also, like, when she gets the bad things, she doesn't use them that many times. So I think that offsets the total amount of stuff possible here from it feeling too bad, which is nice. We didn't mention a couple of her main phase mechanics. Like, there's a couple other things she does throughout the fight all the time. One of them being Twisting Blade, which there's not a lot you could do other than dodge. She's going to pick a player, and she's going to face their direction, and she's going to shoot these 3 like shadow flame blades out in that player's direction. You just got to make sure you're either wide of it or in between 2 of the blades, and then you'll be fine. The other thing she does, which is very disruptive, is Blistering Spear.
Yeah.
And this goes out on like 4 players. I don't know if it's always 4 players or if it's just 4 players above a certain raid size, but we always get 4. So it's a 10-yard circle. Those players are going to be tethered to the ground and taking Shadow Flame damage. And yeah, they're also going to be radiating a thing called Blistering Torment, which is it's like a 10-yard pulse of Shadow Flame damage until the spear is destroyed. They get plates, these come out, have people fan out near the boss. Don't overlap each other. The circles can overlap, but not the players. And everybody should be switching and nuking down the spears so that break people out and stop the pulsing damage.
Yeah, the big thing here is clarify, if you're the player who is selected with a spear, the best thing you can do is commit to the fact that you're stuck in fire and just kill the spear that you're next to. It's very tempting to try and keep running out of the circle because you're standing in something you shouldn't be standing in. The mechanic is holding you there. So the best thing you can do when you get this ability is turn and DPS that spear as hard as you can to try and break it out so you get out of it as fast as possible.
Yeah, and everybody should be helping out, as much as you can. Obviously, it's kind of hard for melee because you are going to be taking damage in that 10-yard circle. So, if you have a decent split with melee and range, then range players should really just pivot and blow up those spears, and then you're done. The important thing is just having a plan for like where exactly these are going to go. I know they're like weak auras that will help you have very specific positioning with them and everything. I feel like for the lower difficulties, it's not really required. It's not essential that you do that. Players just need to know, like, okay, we want them somewhat close together for cleave and stuff, and we need to like not drop them on each other. We need to not drop them on the entire raid stack. We need to not drop them on tanks. It can be kind of attractive with something like that to just run super far away, right? Like, I'm going to heroic leap 40 yards away, and then I'm going to, drop this spear over here, and then nobody will have to deal with it. But now you're stuck to it, and it's hard for anybody else to kill it. So
or heal you.
Yeah, you want to create sort of like a ring, slightly behind your melee stack or something. That's what we tend to do. And then it's like everybody can kind of just turn and shoot it or whatever. And then you clear it up and you proceed with the fight.
Yeah. All right. I think overall that wraps up the first 2 bosses. We will be obviously covering other bosses in future episodes, but I hope the people enjoyed that. Man, yeah.
I think it's a really great intro to the raid. They're fun bosses. The visuals are nice. The arenas are cool, and they feel good to do. There's some pretty nice loot even early on. There's cool stuff from these bosses. So, I have nothing but good things to say about Amir Drasil so far, and I think the intro to the raid is really strong. So, hopefully this stuff helps you out if you're looking at progressing through these bosses in an organized way. We're going to do a bit of a different schedule with these because between the LFR release schedule and the way the LFR wings are laid out, doing our traditional thing of trying to do guides for the week that the LFR wing comes out just doesn't make any sense this time. I didn't want to do a Smolderon guide this week because I haven't even done it on Heroic yet, and I can't really speak to it intelligently. And it's one of the harder bosses. So if you're doing organized raiding, like you might not be really concerned about Smolderon at this point. So, we'll take a couple bosses here and there and go in more. I think go in the order that, you should probably kill stuff based on like WoW progress stats, like we're going to talk about the easier bosses first and the harder bosses later. We're not going to go 1, 2, 7.
Yeah, exactly. All right, folks, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, Celian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, and Vespin. Thank you so much for everything you give. We really appreciate all of our patrons, all of you patrons out there, contribute so much to our show and help us to pay for all of the production costs that go along with it. Our Patreon is located over at patreon.com/thestartingzone. And we got no new patrons this week, but again, just an incredible thank you to all of you for your support. We appreciate it so much.
Yes, thank you, patrons. Your support means a lot. It helps us keep the show on track and keep new episodes headed your way and help us, keep our archives online and all that stuff. So thank you all for helping us make the best show we possibly can, and your support means a lot.
All right, another great way to support our show is over at your iTunes, your Apple Podcasts. Leave us those 5-star reviews. I know it's a bit of a pain in the butt. You got to deal with Apple to be able to do it, but they do help raise us up those charts so more people find the show, and we love reading them here from our listeners. This one comes in from Techno Kitty out of Australia, entitled Best WoW News Podcast. Fairly new listener, hooked from the first listen. The WoW podcast I didn't know I needed, and is now my go-to WoW news and discussion. Always looking forward to new episodes. Well, thank you so much, Techno Kitty. I'm glad that we can support and help your WoW gameplay and keep you up to date on what's going on. So thank you so much for listening. Big shout out and thank you to all of our Australian listeners. I had a really good time at BlizzCon hanging out with Panda. He came up. It's great to see him. Haven't seen him in a long time, so we got to hang out and spend some time, and we got chicken and waffles together, and it was a good deal, man. We had a good time.
Yes, we love the Aussie WoW fans. They're some of the best and most passionate in the entire world, and so it's always awesome to hear from listeners from all over the world. So thank you, Techno Kitty, for taking the time to write in and let us know, and glad to have you aboard. It's great to hear that you're enjoying the show, and we appreciate you helping us out with the review.
Yeah. That wraps up episode 607 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for The Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or you can join our Discord server at thestartingzone.com/Discord. If you want to get your hands on some TSE gear, you can find that over at TeePublic. That's teepublic.com/stores/The Starting Zone. We've got plenty of designs on shirts and mugs and stickers and all sorts of stuff over there, including some additional colors that I just made sure that we added in because I hadn't gone back through that store in a little while. There's now a tie-dye that was not there before. You can get tie-dyed shirts, apparently. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff over there if you're looking for things. And there was big sales happening all through Black Friday and Cyber Monday. I know someone picked up some shirts during that, so appreciate you. I'll certainly be buying some stuff next year for BlizzCon. If it's happening and if we're going and if all that's, right, I'll certainly be stocking back up on some more TSZ swag before I head down. Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald. And you can also find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald and sometimes on youtube.com/Shieldwald. Streaming Amir Drasil and normal reclears and heroic prog and season 3 keystones and everything else. Stream has been kind of intermittent, but it's been working okay the last few sessions. We'll see what happens tonight. It's usually Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Sundays at 7:30 Eastern. So come say hi, and maybe, who knows, maybe we'll squeeze in some Season of Discovery this week, possibly.
Yeah, Thursday Season Discovery is certainly on my radar. I know there's a bunch of people that were talking about potentially hopping in, including Josh Devilor. Might be someone who I actually pop in with. We'll find out. Anyways. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for myself and Jason, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.